Productive Dentist Academy podcast network.
Welcome to the Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, Dr. Maggie Augustin, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take into your own dental practice. If you are ready to reclaim your time so you can focus on great patient care without sacrificing yourself along the way, buckle up and listen in.
Look at how great I am. I'm a great communicator, and I'm super organized and structured and a philosophical thinker, and emotions never come into play. And I'm like, you were screaming at somebody because the cookies were late 10 minutes ago. What are you talking about? It was just that moment that I remember thinking, like, so many of these stories were, even the name of the book where it came from was something happened. And I became aware of a gap of what I expected or what I thought Stan should be, And it's like, then I immediately went to myself of, as I progress through the book, as I get a little bit of growth, it's like, I can work on me. And it's like, okay, I need to be self-aware. Like, did I do this?
Have you ever read a book that's actually from the employee's perspective, leaders? I am talking directly to you. I know I have read tons of books, and I say tons. It is multitudes of books on leadership from the leader's perspective, how to be a better leader, all the different tips and tricks you can think from one executive to another. I have yet to read a book that's from the employee perspective until now. I just finished a copy of the book Leadership by Jake Brown, and my co-host Chad Johnson and I are about to interview Jake. We are so excited. Chad, you also downed the book in how much time?
About 4 or 5 days, I think, on the drive to work. Perfect. This is kind of embarrassing because in front of the author, I was reading this book and I was like, man, I feel bad about hitting my employees, but I mean, leaders hit.
Oh, stop.
Wah, wah, wah.
So listeners, we're giving you the PG-13 version. There is the PC version of this book, Leaders Hit, and we're just going to try right it and do leadership. So, Jake Brown, you are a very funny, wonderful leadership coach. You own Air Balloon Advisory, author. I met you through the Business Made Simple community. I follow you avidly on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being our guest on Everyday Practices today to share your insight of all of your decades of experience being an employee, being an owner, and everything in between that sits between the pages of leadership. Welcome to our show, Jake.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So how did this idea even get started to write a book? Lots of leaders I know, they say, okay, I'm going to write a book, but there's got to be like a canon moment. There's got to be something that says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and write a book.
Okay. So to write the book, this idea, I was actually trying to build authority in another area of my expertise and everything. And I was just having all these conversations with creative people and middle managers and people that just hated their boss. Just had a really rough time with their boss. And I was having these conversations, and I went back and looked after writing the book. And in the course of about 3 months, I had 200 conversations with people that were just complaining about their boss. And I thought, there's a thing here. And I was telling the same stories over and over again, giving the advice. I was relating with people. And it's this thing, it's you get this picture where it's like anytime you're at a campfire, guys are together, you're just sitting with people, and it's like you get off work. There's like the water cooler where it's safe, but then you go to the bar afterwards and you're like, oh my gosh, can you believe that Stan just did this? And it's like, everybody has those stories. Same thing when you say leadership, when you say the title of the book, people are like, oh, let me tell you about my boss. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. And it's like, or let me tell you about this boss I had in college. Like, people immediately have a story to tell. And what I realized was I was telling these stories over and over again. And I was like, maybe I just pull them together in one place.
Mm-hmm.
So this book takes us through your journey. I forgot to, let the listeners in on your background and being at a creative agency. You're in a creative agency and you're suffering through this boss named Stan. Now, was this the culmination? Is this a fictional tale, or was this fully lived experience? Tell us about Stan the bad boss and this creative agency that you were in.
So this is all real stories that have actually been blended because there are a couple characters. There's one character in the book, Cher, who when I went back and looked at is actually 15 different people. that had that one role. There was one role that Stan kept running people off. Stan is a fake name. Names have been changed to protect the guilty and the innocent, except my name. My name's the same. My wife's name's the same in there as well. But yeah, it's real stories, and it's going back and telling them from where they were. And I even had coworkers from the time read early versions of the book to make sure that I didn't fictional too much. It's like, do you remember this? And they were all like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yes.
And it was just really funny to hear everybody come back. So in one part of it, I talk about there are wounds and scars. And what I found is I couldn't help people when it was an open wound. But when it was a scar, think about scars, we grow up and we have scars and we're like, well, let me tell you about that. They're like trophies that carry stories. And it's already healed. There's a little bit of, a pain maybe, but it's healed. But now we go back to the stories and they don't hurt us anymore. But we can serve others through the scars. We can't necessarily serve people while we're bleeding out. It's like, oh, I got a wound. I can't help from there. And that's kind of what I realized is, this is the story from day one to day last. And it's working at that agency and just some of the ridiculous stories and some of the completely absurd ideas that we came up with to have fun. And some of them are we were horrible employees at times. And, it was just part of the survival. I mean, there are things I look back now and I'm like, I would fire somebody on the spot if they worked for me and did that. No question. They would be gone.
Right. And yet we're human.
Yeah.
Right.
There was one pervasive theme throughout the entire book that it kept popping up. So I listened to it every single morning when I was getting ready for the day. It was the first thing that kicked off my day. And I talked to myself, I'll reply to the book. So I had lots of conversations with you, Jake. One of them was, I wonder what Stan's perspective would be like. What if Stan wrote a counter option, a counter book to kind of give his perspective? Because I've been in the seat of the
Wicked. Like the movie Wicked.
Yeah, maybe like Wicked. Because there's a camaraderie. There's a camaraderie to complaining about a bad boss. I'll give you that. I have been so guilty of, and I've had some doozies. I've had some amazing bosses, and I've had some horrible bosses. And there is that sense of community when you get together and you complain about the boss.
The common enemy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, completely. And then on the flip side, I've been the boss. I think I've been a good boss, and I think I've been a bad boss. I think it depends on years of experience, scenarios, all the context that sits around it. And there was one in particular chapter where you were talking about Stan. He came in on a Friday and everyone was kind of anticipating what he was going to do. And he dropped a bunch of projects in the queue and bounced. And then by Monday was already asking, okay, well, where are these things? And that I thought was a really interesting perspective, because I felt all at once I could see both sides. What if Stan knew he couldn't make payroll if he didn't push these projects through, and nobody on the team knows this? And then you've got the delivery team who gets it and is is he absolutely out of his mind? How can we physically do the work? I feel like I've sat right in the middle of it at times and been how do you navigate that and have community and have respect moving forward? How did you navigate getting dropped projects on Friday and still showing up on Monday knowing that you were going to have to work through it and maintain some sort of a working relationship with Stan?
Wow. It's oh yeah, we get on before you're haha, this is funny, this is gonna be a good conversation, and then she's just and wham, the heaviest question ever. So I will say, reading as you read through the book or you listen through or whatever, the idea that I came away from it is that it's about my growth. You start the book the same way I started. It's the boss's fault. Mm-hmm. But by the end of the book, it's about my growth, and it's I have to own this. And that was what a lot of people, you can't sell a book where you start out and you say, oh, I had a bad boss and this is how I grew. Start with that. They want to complain about the bad boss. That's what we do. So through that, I had to grow. Everybody around me, we grew, through time. And I would say the respect was not there in the beginning. But we learned how to do that. And as we took on more, as I started leading more and more there, I realized, and I did have more empathy for the position that Stan was in. But at the same point, I got to a point where I was if Stan's not self-aware, like I can't do that for Stan. Like I can't fix Stan, and I don't know what to expect. So again, one of the things is we'll go back to like most leadership issues, I think, come from either misaligned or unmet expectations. So that idea, like the scenario that you said, when Stan drops all those projects and everything, if I know what the expectations are, I can work with it. But my expectation is like, oh, look, Stan's being lazy, being, just making a fire so that he can be the hero. That's what I see. And Stan's like, they work for me, get this done. Like there's an unmet, like there's a misalignment there. But if Stan's like, hey, leadership team, this is the issue that we're having. We need to make sure this gets done. Well, that's great. We can rally the troops and have, communication waterfall of who needs to know what. And even if it gets to a point where I'm like, hey guys, there's something going on. We don't have time to talk about it, whatever, but I'm cashing in my social currency with the team and saying, I need y'all to do me a solid favor right now. I'll explain later. Like I can do that if they trust me. But if Stan just comes in, they don't trust Stan at that point. So Stan can't do it. But putting me in that position was really, really hard when I go, hey guys, I need you to do me a solid favor. I don't know why. Like, that's not okay. Now, in my situation, going through the book and everything, there would never be a point in that company that, hey, we're not going to make payroll, so I need to do this kind of stuff. Like, I could see the numbers. I got to the point where, we worked our way in where it's kind of like, we call it reverse delegation. And it's like, I'm going to take this away from you because you're bad at it. And we would just like find ways to take tasks away from the owner, from the leader, because we needed it to be better. It was like, so we had worked our way in and taken some of that stuff. Like the owner didn't run payroll. Natalie in the book actually did.
So I have a thought. Regan, is this indirectly what the magic of Productive Dentist Academy is, in that at the workshop conferences, we have, come together as the team and we go, here's what all needs to get done. Say, by the way, who would be the best person to get this done? And then, like, oh, you're right, boss. It would be the administrative team's, best interest to do this well. Why don't we let them feel empowered to do their best by and it's almost, I don't want to call it passive aggressive, but do you think, Regan, like that there was some rewiring of the boss to, because the boss is bringing the employees to this conference and then learning, wow, if I empower my team does a lot better. And then, the boss goes, yeah, it kind of was my idea to come to this conference, and it's my idea to let them, help me out. And by letting the team kind of do this, I actually win and my productivity goes up and stuff like that. Regan, was that ever a thing?
It is always a beautiful thing to get everyone aligned on the same page, meaning the understanding that if you're going to serve a patient or you're going to deliver a product to a consumer or a customer, that you're all in this together and that you all want it to be successful. Transparency is key, and no one individual is great at everything. And I know for dentistry, I don't know in the different industries you've worked with, Jake, but a lot of pressure sits on the doctor's shoulders, especially if they're business owner and clinician at the same time. And I do think the conference in particular, it absolutely helps people understand how they can show up and be empowered and take off some of the pieces that they shouldn't be holding, maybe the doctor shouldn't be holding, and the team can step up. Jake, what I think you've done an exceptional job when you talk about a misalignment of expectations. Did you say expectations or values are unspoken? What did you say exactly? It was really, really good.
It's a misaligned or unmet expectations.
Misaligned. Yeah. I think you do an exceptional job at separating the data elements from the emotional elements, and suddenly it becomes not so personal anymore. And you're able to refocus where your goal is, and it's not at necessarily saying Stan is a crappy boss or Melanie doesn't know how to do her job.
One of the things that I learned is that, for instance, most people expect their boss to lead them or to take them somewhere or to mentor them or be a friend or a father figure or a mother figure. Like they expect them to change them and invest in them. Most bosses expect to pay you for your work. That's it. It's like, that was a huge, misalignment for me. Was so long. I was like, well, you're my boss. Your job is to make me better. Like, I'm the product that you're working on, and I will make you a lot of money. And then it's like, or not. Like, that just didn't align. And when I started trying to have conversations like that with people, it was like, no. And I'm like, wait a minute. I completely misunderstood this whole boss thing. Like, I did not, like, my expectation was like, I don't know what Curious George book I read and thought that this is how the world was going to be when I got into my career. I have found good people along the way. In this instance, it wasn't. It was just Stan wanted credit. Stan was building a fan club that clapped for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that wasn't in the brochure. Like, not at all what I signed up for. And one of the things you guys mentioned, talking about like the conference and that kind of stuff, is specifically, you said the owner setting up the rest of the team to excel at their job. And in the book, I talk about the WIPE framework. And it's just 2 questions that you figure out: what is the position? What are you working on? And my favorite question to ask a leader, like if you're reading the book, it's like, am I aligned with the company, with the leader, the values, the team? Am I aligned? Am I a part of this and where it's going? Great. The other question is, am I able? And the idea there really is, do I have the skills and am I allowed to do my job? And my favorite question to ask the boss is your team able to do their job? They only talk about the skills. And I say, do you allow them to do it? Do you allow them to grow and learn? Because here's an example. When my son was learning to walk, I remember one day I was carrying the groceries. There's 3 steps into our apartment at the time. He was, little. And I was like, okay, I'll come back and carry you in. Because that was my solution. Well, I come back and he is making it all the way up to the top of the stairs. And I go, wait a minute, he had to fail. He had to do something that was frustrating to me, to be slow and everything. But I have to let him learn to climb those stairs. And that's a frustrating thing for my pace. But I never carried him up those stairs again because I let him figure it out. I allowed him to develop that skill. And most leaders, their biggest thing about delegation is, oh, I don't have that time to teach them. Well, that's cool. Or they won't do it as good as me. And I'm like, here's another story about my kids. This one almost went in the book, but it wasn't about work. We have a staggered chore chart that our kids grow into.
Nice.
And when our kids turn 5, they clean toilets.
Yes.
And they clean toilets like a 5-year-old.
Sure.
But they learn, but it's the next kid up whose job it is to make sure that the toilet gets cleaned. So like right now, so a kid turns 5. Well, the kid older than them is 2 years older. The 7-year-old's job to make sure that the 5-year-old learns how to and cleans the toilet. Well, then it was the 12-year-old's job to make sure that the bathroom was done. So they get like a higher level of oversight, right?
Supervisory. Yeah.
Right. So they're learning that kind of stuff. And I don't have to delegate. My ADHD is fine because I'm like, bathroom done, I'm out. But a 5-year-old cleans the bathroom like a 5-year-old. A 6-year-old cleans the bathroom as good as I do. Cleans the toilet. So you go, but it takes them a year to get good at it. But at the same time, they develop that skill. They get better because we made space for them to get better. And we started this when my oldest was 5. That means I haven't cleaned a toilet in 10 years. That's how delegation works.
That's going to be like the soundbite for the entire podcast now.
I haven't cleaned a toilet in 10 years. Drop.
There is a aside from the cleaning toilet part, what I think is really interesting is, right, you get out what you put into something, and allowing teams to have time to actually be able to be trained in addition to doing day-to-day work is something that I have seen regardless of industry. Again, that tends to be something that gets overlooked an awful lot. And Chad, to your point, like with any conference or any sort of investment you make to train your team, it takes time. How, like Chad, for you, because you've taken your whole entire team multiple times and you invest in training in them. Do you just make that is it just a given? Like when you are planning out your budget and you're looking at the year, you just know, like, I will designate X amount of hours as part of their development.
No. No, but I built it into my Google Calendar. And so I don't think about the cumulative overall, like the big, like the big picture, it's my actually like going on Wednesday, we'll rotate having training session, and the hygienists can have the first one, the assistants can have the second one, the admin can have the third one, and then the fourth week is the monthly recap and stuff like that. So like mine is a little bit more granular, but then it adds up. So I suppose I could in my mind say, okay, that's 12 hours a year, that the hygienists are doing theirs, and 12 hours a year, that, and stuff like that. But I've never thought, okay, I've got an extra $30,000. Let's set that aside for employee development, and let's choose what to do with that. It was kind of like, oh man, I suppose we should make that conference work, and I'll just find a way to make it work, even though I don't know if I have the budget for it. That's kind of how it went. Jake, I have a question. So I was curious how it ended up long-term and didn't make it into the book, that everyone chose to wear jeans. And then it makes me wonder if the alternate sub caption of this book is How to Train Your Boss.
That was so good. I love the jean story.
Yes. So your thoughts, Jake?
Sorry, I started laughing. I kind of forgot the question.
So the question was, there any so what didn't make it into the book? Like over the next year, was it like, what's that?
There's a lot that didn't make it into the book.
Yes. So I just wonder if, if there was some poking fun of the jeans story, because poking fun, or shall we call it soft bullying, is one way that we can, let people know, like, hey, I'm just kidding around, but I'm not. Like, there's some truth to it. We don't like when you aren't consistent with your rules. And, do you remember how we all wore the jeans? Do you want that to happen again because you're not consistent with how you come to work and stuff like that? Like, was there any more follow-up, or was it just unsaid, unspoken, like done deal, and that was it?
So on that specific, okay, I'm gonna back up. There's a term that I use, and I call it custom jabs. Yes. And it's this idea, you can say stuff that's like walking up and punching somebody in the throat.
Yes.
And they will smile at you and give you a hug and everything, because you're like, I heard you, I have listened to you, I understand you, and now my punch is because I know you better than other people. And I think that's those, even when you do those and they're not kind, they land really, really well. And I have learned that I'm really good at that. Actually, my wife and my therapist have told me I'm really good at that. Very efficient to that. Sometimes too good. Oh yeah, you can smile at somebody.
I know. See, that's the best, is when you actually smile and you just go, well, it's because you don't wear deodorant.
Yeah.
See, and people are like, oh, he said that with a smile. Oh.
But it's just those custom jabs, they do go deeper. They hit because the person's like, oh, you understand me. It's kind of like, the jab from a friend. You can take a harder hit from a friend than you can from a stranger or an enemy.
That's right.
And it matters more. Like you're going to also respond to that differently.
Right.
So to the genes.
That's literally in Proverbs, isn't it? It's just like, that's, that like a kiss from, or something like that, like that a kiss from an enemy is worse than a jab or whatever from a friend, like from your brother. And it's just like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, straight out of the new Chad translation, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty much.
Yeah, it's the modern day context. The modern day gist. Yeah.
Sarah hears a lot of that.
So for context in this book, the gene story is really about not leading the way horribly, like modeling the way in the worst way possible as a leader and being a total hypocrite. Correct?
Yeah, it's so the boss shows up in jeans. We were only allowed to wear jeans on Friday. Our Fridays get taken away when clients are in the office, or, just because Stan ate a bad burrito. I don't know. We can't wear jeans. Like, it's ridiculous. There was no pattern. So this kept going on, and it was kind of a freedom that we had, one of the things that we had to hold on to, and it just kept getting taken away. And then there's this week that Stan just starts showing up because he didn't do laundry, and he's showing up wearing jeans all the time, and we're like, this is garbage. So I rally the troops, and we decide that one day we're all just going to wear jeans and see how this goes. And it proved a point. We didn't get in trouble. We should have. I should have gotten in a lot of trouble for this. We didn't. It rallied everybody even closer together. and it made some changes. Jean Fridays were never canceled again.
Oh, okay.
But the jeans every day wasn't a thing. It's just like nobody ever spoke about it. Like it never came up, but we were always allowed to wear, like every Friday, even if clients came to the office, we were allowed to wear jeans on Friday. Like it just became sacred thing, you know, so it was good. Ironically though, I was gone for about 6 months or so, and it became jeans every day. So I was like, okay. So that was like a massive shift that they changed the policy that everybody could just wear jeans. And I was kind of like,
Including Stan.
sure.
Right? I
mean, you-
I'm
Stan is,
yeah,
so,
sure.
yeah, Stan's not real, sort of real.
Well, right.
No, Stan's a person, different name.
Yeah. Person.
Oh, okay,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah. And but Stan was wore jeans whenever. They changed the kind of the culture a little bit, like they shifted. It kind of, I think what happened is when I left, it some of the glue that I was holding together, like I actually in a way became an enabler because I was standing in that gap. And part of my leaving, like there was some friction that they had to recalibrate. And I think in part of that, there were several things that shifted. Another thing is, right as I was leaving, we shifted the company, that agency, to be completely remote.
Oh.
So then that was fine. But when they got together, everything was jeans. If client meetings, you could wear jeans to client meetings. Like there was a big shift there. So that was interesting.
I really like how you address the self-awareness piece in the book about leaders not being self-aware. And I pulled a statistic. I posted it on LinkedIn. It was something like 95% or so of leaders believe that they're self-aware when actually it's like minimal. It's like 15% or something actually are self-aware. And I thought the Jean story was one example of being it was poignant, because how could you not know if you have a policy in place and and you show up as the boss in jeans? You've got to have a moment in your head where you are going against the rules. And then you tell this story about showing up and having this big special day planned. It was like a training day, and you did the personality assessment. And it rocked your world because it really demonstrated just how disconnected Stan was from the person that he actually is to the person that he is projecting and thinks he is sharing with everybody else. And that, what in the following pages, like it was a cliffhanger for me. I was like jumping out. I've done all of the personality tests, not every single one, but I've done so many. And I've seen this scenario happen before. So I knew exactly where you were at. If you take the test, you do not see yourself and you project it onto others. And the book continues and gives you tools. And I thought that was amazing, because whether you are a boss yourself or whether you are an employee sitting in the leadership and trying to work through it, you actually have solutions for it, which is amazing, because most books, they talk about it, they make you aware of it, and then there isn't a whole heck of a lot to do with it. So the Chad, do you remember the personality test story in his book?
Fill me in a little bit more for context.
The title is "You Failed a Personality Test, You Get a Cookie."
Story of my life.
So yeah, I mean, when you're investing in your team and forcing everybody to go through these tests or these whatever it is that you're going to have them do, what good is it if you're not going to be real with yourself? And so, Jake, did I understand it correctly? Everybody took a personality test, and Stan gets up to, like, everyone's reading off what they got as their results, and it's obvious that Stan either didn't fill it out realistically, or he just saw a completely different version of himself than everybody else was experiencing.
It was definitely projected, the masking of what Stan thought. Well, first off, wanted everybody to think and thought that we believed about him. But it was probably the most awkward moment in my career, because you're sitting there, Stan's like reading off this stuff and how great, these are my strengths and all this kind of stuff. And like, I remember like sitting there, like to this day, I can remember that fluorescent light humming above me, because the room is so awkwardly silent as everybody's not laughing, like looking around, like trying to figure out like what's happening here. Like everybody knew, like the interns knew this was not real, but Stan was just like so proud of the results. Like, look at how great I am. I'm a great communicator, and I'm super organized and structured and a philosophical thinker, and emotions never come into play. And I'm like, you were screaming at somebody because the cookies were late 10 minutes ago. What are you talking about? It was just that moment that I remember thinking, like, so many of these stories were, even the name of the book where it came from was something happened. And I became aware of a gap of what I expected or what I thought Stan should be, And it's like, then I immediately went to myself of, as I progress through the book, as I get a little bit of growth, it's like, I can work on me. And it's like, okay, I need to be self-aware. Like, did I do this? So I didn't put it in the book, but I actually Huck, my best friend in the book. Actually, he is my best friend. He lives across the street. Different name. But we actually had a talk. We had a talk.
It's not Jason. Okay, I thought I'd at least just one in a million names. I'd try. I know. Listen,
Good try. Go for it.
Stay focused.
But we anyway, we had a conversation, and it was just kind of like, hey, are my results right? Like, am I right here? Like, this is what I thought about myself. I answered it from my perspective. And he was like, this surprised me a little bit, but I can see that. And I'm like, okay. So, having somebody that you trust kind of sand off some of the edges or whatever, like, am I pretending here? Am I lying to myself? So I've been, any kind of assessment, I bounce it off of other people, try to get that outside perspective just to make sure, whether it's my wife, sometimes my kids, just other people. I'm kind of like, I think this about myself. Am I right? But I've never been so far off that everybody in the room is just like, what do we do with this information? Like, it was so weird.
Jake, practical information for all the listeners, though. I've done employee evaluations where I have peers evaluate, so like you,
like the 360 kind of thing.
I don't know. What's that?
Above, below, beside, like peers, the boss peers.
That sounds really fancy. Yes to that. Yes to that. But yeah, so and that didn't go over so hot, because they felt like it was like trying to gotcha or whatever. Maybe it was the way I did it. I don't know. I am a boss, by the way. So, maybe I'm just not aware of how I did it. But I had a tough time with that because I thought it would be good for people to see when there's a discrepancy between, well, your peers rated you as a 2 out of 5 and you rank yourself as a 5 out of 5. Now, it's okay when you rank yourself as a 2 and they rank you as a 2. Then it's just like, okay, you are very aware of your deficiency, but at least you see it, as opposed to being able to bring up, it's just like, okay, you wrote down 5s on everything. Your peers said 3 on these 3 categories. Why the discrepancy? But I thought it was going to be a hit. It turned out it was just like, I don't know, they felt a little paranoid about it. So for what it's worth to the listeners, do it better than the way I did it, I guess.
Yeah. I would say I love the idea. And from a very high level, hyper focused, like this would be helpful for me. This would be helpful for other people. One of the things that I always, I learned from Stan and a couple other places, and then I've tried to implement it even with my kids. It's, like the whole idea of like, you want to celebrate them in public, unless they're super introverted, like that could be painful. And then you reprimand or you coach in private.
Yes.
Like you try to do that more. And the idea is that you're trying to expose something or show somebody where they should be coached, and you're dragging other people into that conversation, especially on reviews. Because you go into the review, think of it this way. Anytime, the way that most reviews are wired, like the way that they're intentionally designed, is I'm interviewing for a raise. Like that is how we go into them as most employees. It's like,
right.
I want to skew all of the data because depending on how I answer these, that determines if I get a raise or a promotion or whatever. Okay. I don't want other people's feedback. I want this. Like, and then if you get some people that maybe aren't as healthy, that are like, oh, well, if I rate them low, then I'll be the one up for the promotion. And then it gets messy because it's like anytime there's not trust, anytime it's not a safe place for honesty, then you can't have it becomes grenades.
So
It's
now you have two discrepancies, one bias in favor of the first person, and then the other people can be a positive or negative. It could be their best friend that's trying to skew it up too.
Right.
You're right.
Wow.
It's just honesty dies when it's not a good, like if it's not a healthy place, honesty is not valued. Like people are in it to win.
Yes.
I was gonna say, Chad, let's talk. Jake, let's slide this over to Betsy, because let's put Betsy under this frame. So Betsy is a character in the book, Chad, and when you're talking about like 360 or peer reviewed, reviews and whatnot, I've done multiple different types of reviews. Betsy would be horrible. So she is this character that there's a bit of nepotism going on, if I remember correctly, and so she gets special treatment. She's horrible. Like she does not play by the rules. She doesn't show up for like client meetings, or if she does, she's dressed sloppily. Like she was a really great example of a bad.
We called her Bedhead Betsy. Like
Bedhead Betsy.
That sounds like do you remember Garbage Pail Kids? You know, that sounds like the perfect quintessential Garbage Pail Kid.
I can see that. I should have made a Garbage Pail Kid card of her as part of the kit. Yeah.
Supposedly would have. Yeah. I don't know if you said this or if I just like wrote this down in my notes, but I have nepotism Betsy, and I said bad leaders let trash employees stay and they don't deal with it.
Yeah.
And tell us more.
Yeah. So in each, I like the way you said that better. In each chapter, what actually happened is I was telling the stories, and then I needed to come back to them, and I was like, but what's the thing? What's the thing? And I started calling them nuggets, and then that was funny because it's all poop jokes. But I hand wrote them. So like at the end of every chapter, there's a handwritten note where it's kind of like, I wanted to be kind of like I wrote in the book to say, here's the takeaway. And on that one with the Bedhead Betsy, the idea is that, a good leader takes out the trash. Like it's going to rot and ruin everything else, but you got to clean up. Like that is part of the leader's job. It's not comfortable. It's not fun, even if it's your fault that the trash is there. But like I literally started the paperwork and everything trying to fire this person, and I was just told no, like we're not going to do that because I don't want to. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
It's crazy to me how much it brings down the entirety of the group when things like that happen. It sets a really bad example, and it just ends up, it's like an infection. I think it starts to fester and go down. And so to the point of it, I think when you're aligned, like when the team's aligned, when the leadership is great, then it's easy to get peer reviews because the trust and the honesty is there. Jake, I feel like this entire book was actually a quest to reclaim your joy.
I like the quest.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a quest? It felt like a quest to recapture joy and live through things and try to have fun along the way. And you start the book off with your ninja like office shenanigans and
Yes.
playfulness, and part of it made me sad because how many times in my own life have I can get super hyper focused, especially towards a mission or a project, and I do not build in enough time, I think, to have fun like on the daily basis. I'm better now, but there were years when I was so focused on the goal at hand. Like I felt like, the dogs at the racetrack where they have the little rabbit on the stick and it shoots out. Like I felt like that's where I was always going for a lot of my career. And in all of that, there's just there's months, there's years that can just go by the wayside. And I feel like throughout this book and throughout your decade of experience, you were that for like the team. You tried to help them keep up the joy even in a toxic environment. Do you think that's just your personality in general?
I think a lot of that is my personality. It is, listeners, you probably know I have ADHD. You probably picked up at that really quickly. But what I found out looking back was that it was horrible. And there's a line where I talk about like, as we were going, that fun sparked joy and joy brought growth. That's how it worked for me. And in order to survive, I needed people to smile. I needed things. I needed disruption in the pain. And I just went to what I knew. And it was, I was the kid who was in the back of the class being told, sit still, doodling. Like I was that kid. Like now I'm a grown up version of that kid. and it's allowed because I built my business this way. But it's like this idea where there had to be fun, there had to be disruption, because I was like, something in me was dying. And it just happened. We weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to do stuff. And like you mentioned, Hallway Assassin, chapter 1, it's like we just started playing little. I mean, it's like we are 7-year-olds out in the hall playing cops and robbers, like shooting each other and stuff. Like, it is ridiculous. And it just happened. It was just like, it just kind of popped out and it's like, boop, boop, boop. And then more people saw that spark where we were kind of alive. It started with the two of us, and then more people joined, and people like, they found that fun. But here's the thing, we actually were hitting our goals and projections more because everybody was fired up and fueled and we were running faster. But at the same time, that hyper focus on the goals, I think that's great. And I think somebody at the company should be monitoring that. There has to be somebody. Otherwise, we're just having a bunch of fun on one knees was dying.
Grown up. Yeah, sure.
Well, not just be the grown up, but it could just be something where you're like checking in. You're kind of like, okay, are we still facing the goal? Okay, guys.
Sure.
It's lunchtime. We had a fun morning. Back to work. That can happen. I've had to be that person in situations. And that became a dichotomy of I'm the distraction and the driver. Like, I physically would be like, okay, headphones on, we're working. Like, I had to physically signal people that it's work time where I'm headphones on. Like, this is our workout. Like, this is what we're doing. But I don't think chasing goals is bad. Like, I have a lot of fun chasing big goals and driving things forward. I sometimes have trouble celebrating because most of my career, when I'm driving and I hit a big thing and I have a breakthrough, like for instance, the book. I launched my book. I put it out there in the world. People started like, it went way better than I expected. It was received very well. I mean, I was like, man, I hope 50 people buy this sometime in my lifetime.
Yes.
Let's just say that pre-orders it has now surpassed 5,000 copies. And I was like hoping for 50. I was kind of like, I don't want to tell people that I want to sell 50. Like, we'll see what happens. But having that big goal and grabbing into it, and I launched the book. And to be honest, by the time it was live and I got everything done and it's for sale, I was so tired of it. I like almost hated it. It was like, I'm ready to do something else. Yeah. And the way my brain works is I cross the finish line. The way that I celebrate is I start the next race.
Yep.
And I had to like put in some buffers and go, okay, we're going to celebrate. And my wife, being awesome, actually scheduled a vacation, and we went and hiked in Colorado without cell service. So I launched my book, and the next week I was off the grid, and I came back and I was excited and I loved it again. But it was one of those things, like, she knew that about me and protected me from myself because I was about to dive into whatever the next thing on my list was. So I think having the fun, having those disruptions, scheduling them and protecting them is important. Having flexibility for the fun will help people. But at the same time, it's like, if you have a bunch of forced fun, like, it's not fun. No, like I talk about, man, another chapter in there is the fantasy football. Like, yes, we were forced to do fantasy football and nobody wanted to. And it was just like, all right, great. It's like, this is going to be a great culture experience. Everybody's going to love it. And we were just like, oh, this is so horrible. So like, yep. You can't force the fun, but you have to leave room for people to overlap and waste time. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It has to be some, so that they will like each other, so that they can move forward. And it can be, little things like movies during lunch. Like, we would watch sometimes a movie across 4 days during our lunch breaks, where we just sit down together. If you wanted to, you could in the conference room or not. Just little things like that. It's just like, if it sparks and it sounds like fun, ask if people want to do it. But then at the same time, you have to move things forward or you stop getting paid. So
fantasy football was on my list of notes because of the forced fun, and everyone has had to suffer through a pizza party that they didn't want to necessarily be part of. Yeah. And it is,
by the way, if you are a leader and you are bringing in Little Caesars pizza thinking that grownups are going to like be happy or it's worth something, like, it's just wrong. Like, a pizza party is not community. Like, it is, the way I think of it is like, if you've ever been to a food bank or somewhere where people are like getting food, like, nobody wants to actually be seen there. They're there because they need help and they're there for the help. That is how you feel going to most company pizza parties. It's kind of like, well, I don't have enough time to go anywhere, so I guess I'll grab this pizza. And you're looking around at all the other people that are trapped in a situation they don't want to be in. And you're like, there's hope somewhere else out there. I can't wait to not be at this pizza party. Like, I want my life to be better than this.
Right.
Okay, so that's a beautiful flip, because this book is, as you said, it goes from, complaining about the situation, which is kind of a victim mindset, right? Like, I'm stuck in this. And I just leapt up when I heard in the book you say, I'm responsible for this. I can leave. I'm not a prisoner here. I can do this. It was so good. I was like, yeah. And you have this acronym WIPE. And it gives you this assessment tool to how you can either continue to show up, or you are no longer in alignment. So tell me if I'm wrong here. It stands for winner, intern, prisoner, and expert, right?
Yep.
So along with this acronym, you also have, when you buy the book, a kit. You can go to your a special URL, and you've got a kit with downloadables in it that support this. But can you tell our listeners about the WIPE acronym and how it helps you I don't know if you just tell me more about it, because it's a brilliant, simple, I know exactly where I'm at in this moment and how I can show up and own my life and be the hero of my story.
Yeah, for sure. So it came about because I was struggling and trying to figure myself out. And then I started using it during people's reviews, their quarterly reviews. I was just trying to figure out, I was trying to come up with a culture scale. Are they still here? Can I count on them for another quarter? I was kind of self-preservation of my role for the people who worked for me. I was grading them, and that's kind of how it first started. And the idea that I started looking at for myself, and every month I would grade myself on it just to see, who am I showing up for other people, and what is my role in this space? And we mentioned earlier, it's the you just ask two simple questions. Am I aligned? Do I align with the boss, with the company, the vision, the team? Am I a part of this movement or not? Yes, no. So it's, that's one. It's a 2x2 grid. So on the grid, it's a 2x2 grid for the WIPE framework. And what you can do is you ask yourself the two questions. And the first one, it's, the question on the left axis is, am I aligned? And it's either, yes, I'm aligned with the boss, the team, the mission, the company, where we're moving. Am I a part of that movement or not? Yes, no. Super simple. And then you just circle that row. And then vertically, it's, am I able? And the way I define able is, are you able to or not? Do you have the skills, and are you allowed to do your job? And you circle it. And as I came up with this, those were the two questions I wanted people to know when I was trying to come up with a system or whatever. And I love 2x2 grids because you get to ignore everything else in the world. These are the only two things that we're answering. And I came up with that. And then eventually I just started naming them. And I had to adjust one of them, but I thought it was hilarious to have a book called Leadership and then the acronym be WIPE.
Right.
But the winner is, so you take that assessment real fast. Simple. You can do that right now in half a second. And then there's a couple chapters in the book where it actually dives into each one of those, kind of describes them a little bit more. And the intern, I think of them as like a new puppy that is super excited and pees all over the kitchen. That's the image that I get. We all know somebody's super excited. They're aligned. They're super happy. They're passionate to be there. They have no skill whatsoever. And they just get all excited and make a mess. And everybody's kind of like, can somebody go clean that up? That is the role when you are an intern. And that's fine. You acknowledge it. And then the steps are, you can slide, beside, you can either get the skills and go to the winner, or you slide down and you become a prisoner, where it's just you're just there. You're stuck. That's the intern. The prisoner, they're not able, and they're not aligned. They're just there. They have no leverage to move forward. There's not that's the worst, the darkest part, where you don't even have hope to find another job, because you're kind of like, I'm just stuck. But it's also the easiest one to change, because you either align or you get able. You just pick one of those and start developing it. And it's the easiest one to move from. The expert is what I think is actually the worst one to be in, because you're kind of a mercenary. You're the hired hand, and you're also the fastest one to get fired. Because as long as a bad boss, or as long as a team needs what you provide, your specialization, then you're valuable. But as soon as an unhealthy place doesn't need you anymore, you're not aligned, you're the easiest one to kick off the bus. You're also the one kind of with a target painted on your back if something goes sideways with a client. And like if a non-self-aware or a bad boss has to choose between their relationship with the client and you're gone. Like so fast. Yeah.
All right. So here's my question. Intern, are you able, one way that you described it is, are you able from the ability of the employee? What if someone is aligned but not able to because the boss isn't? Are they still in that intern category?
Yep. If they are not allowed to do their job.
Correct.
Like they have the skills and they're not allowed. Yes.
Yes.
And I do talk about a couple ways to get out of that. For instance, so if you're not allowed, we talk about reverse delegation in the book. And that is a way that you get information out of the boss. Another thing is to have conversations where you say, you asked for me to do this. I did this. Did you expect something different?
Yes. Yep. That rings a bell.
Because when I started using that phrasing, like even with coaching and consulting clients, like one of my biggest things in marketing agencies is you should not do revisions. If you're doing revisions, that's because there was a misalignment in expectations at the beginning and the end. And if you go back and say, this is what we set out to do, this is where we did it, did I misunderstand? If you're quoting, like if you go to a grown up and you say, you said this, so I did it. Did you lie to me? Like that's basically what the conversation is saying without being abrasive. You know, you're like, so going back and saying, you told me to do this, I did it. Did I misunderstand the expectations? Like, was the expectation different?
You know what's funny? Along those lines, I have an internal marketing guy. We were at lunch the other day, and he said, I made a design for a guy because he does side stuff, and I'm cool with that. Like, but he does his side stuff, and someone said, I just want like this leaf, but I want it to be simple, and then our name. And so Dean says, okay, I'll tell you what. So he makes what was it? It was a maple leaf. And so he takes a maple leaf and he puts the name on it and stuff like that and shows it to the guy. And he says, there, it's simple. It has the leaf on it like you wanted. What do you think? And then he goes, well, I could have done that. And he was like, are you kidding me? Like you said, you wanted it simple and this is what you wanted. What more do you want? And he's like, like, how do you want it changed? And he's like, I don't know. That like, and so I think it was frustrating right along that line, because it's like, what do you mean? Like, there should be no revision to this. This is actually exactly what you asked for, except for maybe you don't know what you want more than you realized.
And that's the point where you go back to the beginning and you go, you lied to me. Like, and a point for a leader, what I would say is if you delegate something and then you change the rules along the way, you did lie to them because you said it was ready for them to work on.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't their job yet. Like if I'm a leader and I hand off something, I delegate it and then I come back and I say, oh, JK, like I'm changing everything on you. Like, I handed this off to you and you worked on it for 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, I finally thought about the project and this is what I meant to ask for. Like I did lie to you when I told you it was your responsibility. Like it wasn't yours yet. That was the lie that was told. And I found, not because of other people, I found out because I had a good friend employee who pulled me aside and said, we hate working on these projects for you. And I was like, the friend with the, just punched me in the throat. And I was like, what do you mean you hate working on these? And I found out like, that's what I was doing. I was trying to allow them into the project earlier because I wasn't allowed to. Well, sure, let's go ahead and start the project. But I wasn't actually giving them the project. And one of the tools for the reverse delegation, we call it the gold medal delegation, because it was during the Olympics we came up with this. And it's not medal, like it's MEDDLE, because it's like the boss kept meddling and getting involved in stuff. So this is like how we were going to stop that from happening. And it's just a simple, like, it's a worksheet, but if you ask these questions in this way, it actually helps you make sure that the expectations are aligned and it's written somewhere and you can go back to it. And then when you present information, when you're done with a task, you can prove that you're done and you can prove that you actually did the task as assigned. And if the leader has to come back and go, yeah, I assigned the task wrong, that's a different conversation. And you can go, great. As long as we both know that's on you.
That's right.
Don't say it out
You
loud.
admitted
But
it.
yeah. And as the employee, they go, well, the project changed. Well, now you're mad at the boss's behavior, not the project, and it's not my fault. Whether or not I bring that with the boss, that's a personal, structural organizational thing.
Yep.
But at least I know I can survive that situation. And my favorite, so I don't even remember if I covered this part in the book, but I came up with the idea we were watching the Olympics, and a guy comes down and the lady interviews him, and then he didn't know how to get off the course. Like, he's looking around trying to find the exit. And it's like on international TV, and the guy's like, I don't know where to go, and I don't speak English well. And like, I felt bad for him. But I realized that at the end of every project, there are so many times that things are delegated or whatever, that it's like, I finished the course. Now what? What do I do with the project? How do I get it off my plate? Do I just like close it? Do I throw it away? Do I send an email? And that's the exit. That's like the very bottom. It's kind of like, do the work and tell somebody. Do the work and close it. Like, how does somebody exit this task? It's no longer theirs because it's closed. And when I watched that guy skiing, I was like, that's the frustration that I'm having right now, is I finish all of these courses. Like, I finish everything. I finish this massive task. Like, I'll do an education exhibit for the State Fair of Texas. And I get to the bottom, and then I look around and go, I got approval. When can this stop being my stress? Like, where does this go?
Where's the handoff?
Yeah. Like when does the boss acknowledge that I'm done? Like, that's what I need to know.
Oh my gosh, this is what we're going to have to do an episode 2, because really, I mean, think of the patient handoffs, Chad, and the brilliance from that. And when does the customer journey end? When does the patient journey end? When do we officially know? Are they pulled through? That's incredible advice. Jake, thank you for spending so much time with us on this. This is an incredible topic. One thing I'm going to say, I want to leave us with this, because you were an incredible advisor and coach yourself. The 2 questions in Wipe alone, whether you are listening right now and you're an employee who's stuck in a bad situation and trying to figure your way through it, or if you are a boss yourself, because that can be not a fun walk in the park either. I think you can definitely, I know for sure you can ask yourself those questions. And if you find yourself not in the winner category and where you want to be, everyone benefits from support. And dental practices, you all know that Chad and Maggie and I have talked often about being brave and niching in and really going after what you authentically want as a business leader, as a practice owner. And sometimes you need some support. So I have Jake's permission to share. You said it yourself, you have the ADHD, and as a coach yourself, you decided, I'm doing well, I'm okay, but I have this challenge to niche in, so I'm going to really narrow down my target audience and help ADHD leaders. And I was on a call hearing it when this story came through, and you just shot it out of the roof and been very successful. So congratulations on your niche and reaching out to all the ADHD leaders. If you could take us home, what is the biggest thing that gives you joy from now being on the other side of all of this lived experience that's turned into wisdom? And where do you get your most deepest satisfaction as you coach others through their own process?
Man, here we go with the heavy punches again, man. These are a big question. What is the meaning of your life? Well, yeah, honestly, I had a great moment this week, and this is something that I was talking to one of my clients, and we just went through some stuff, and he was explaining what was going on right now and the frustration in a certain situation. And I said, man, can you even imagine having that problem 3 months ago? And he was like, no. It was this fact that he had grown, he had transitioned from, this what was to the problem that he's having today, what he's working on. Like, he can't even imagine the problems that he was having then, now. Like, he has grown, he has come to that point. That is my favorite part, especially as I'm working with, leaders that have ADHD, where they go, oh, this is how I'm wired. Now we can build the business. Like, this makes sense. This works. It's like, real quick, when I think of ADHD, it's a collection. It's not design flaws. It's a collection of design features. And when I make that transition, it's like, these are just features that nobody else knew what to do with. A misaligned expectation,
Mhm.
And when I work with business leaders and goes, yeah, this is all here. Maybe it's not your job to do. Maybe we figure this out. How do we work around that? Or how about we just ignore it? It doesn't actually matter. You don't have to do that. Like for me, I can't schedule anything. I can't handle my own calendar. I am not a grown-up when it comes to understanding time. But my 15-year-old son will do it for $20. It's like, you know what? He will handle that for me. And I'm like, that's something easy to handle. Not too long ago, I went to an event and it took me 3 hours to try and book my flight. And it's with Southwest and you have to buy it through Southwest. There aren't options. Like it still took me that long to try and figure it out. And I'm like, I'm done. And my son's like, boop, 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 15 minutes. Everything's booked and ready to go. And I'm like, fail. So when we
No fail. That's my
Success.
husband 1,000%. I am relating so hard right now.
So when those moments happen, like where somebody realizes that they have, like when we feel guilty that we've been carrying all this stuff or we feel like we're failing, and it's kind of like, wait, that's other people had that expectation of me and it wasn't fair. That's not my expectation. When we realize that, and then we can build a business on top of that, that's kind of my happy place is I get to help people do that. But then when they realize it, and then they start changing their actions and they give themselves the ability to not have freedom, but go, that's a design feature and I'm using it. So long answer. Sorry.
Beautiful answer. All right. So I know Leadership has sold thousands of copies. So my assumption is they can get it on where books are sold. Will you drop your details for us here? So if people want
Including Audible, which he reads it himself. And Jake, thank you for reading it yourself. I love that.
So I'm dyslexic as well. And I am terrified of reading in public. And it took me 2 months of talking to good friends and my wife and stuff to convince me to read it in my own voice. And I recorded it, the first chapter, like 12 times.
Yes.
Until I was not embarrassed. And I sent it to people, even to a couple strangers, to have them listen to it. And I just realized I'm really good at telling these stories. And I just would prompt and read through it. And it was like, okay, so I am reading it. But it was the biggest fear I had, like in my grown-up career life, was I'm going to read in front of people and I'm going to ask them to pay me for that. Like it was this massive imposter syndrome fear thing that I was dealing with. So thank you for that encouragement, because it was the scariest grown-up thing, work thing I did.
What's so funny is you sound so great in it too. Like I felt like I was in the room with you. You're a very, very wonderful orator. Like it's
conversational.
Yes, it was really good. Okay, so Jake, where do people buy the book? How do they get connected with you? What are your details?
Yeah, so to buy the book, fastest way, it's on Amazon. It's on Audible. If you go to the website, you can link to it from there. The website is leadershit.co. Or if you're concerned, you can go to leadershit.co.
That's right.
It'll take you there, and you can learn more about the book there. You can click on it. You can actually find me there if you want to as well.
Thank you, Jake. This has been an incredible hour of your time. We appreciate you. Thanks for being super brave and continuing to face your fears, because people are transforming as a result of it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share, or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.